everybody. My name is Shannon White. I am one of the admins of the SWO Off Reservation Organization page. And tonight we are bringing you an interview with Erin Kiyukanpi. Did I say it right?
You said it right, yeah.
Okay. So, why this is important is because it's real time things happening within our tribe at this time. And, oh, okay. Sorry, sometimes my computer does weird stuff and then it freaks me out like in the middle of my life.
Oh, I thought we just now went live or something, like I said. Just kidding, we're going live.
So this is real-time issues happening right now, and considering that it's an election year, I really think that anytime something newsworthy happens, that we need to share it with our folks that are off res because they need to know what's going on, the character of their leadership, and upcoming candidates. So we're going to talk with Erin, and he's gonna tell us all about recent events. So Erin, um, where did you go to school?
So, I got my, sorry, my voice is a little hoarse right now. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe it was that court date. I don't know. But anyway, so I got my Associates of Arts degree at SWC back in 2017. And then I moved me and my son to Morris, Minnesota. And I got a bachelor's degree in Native American Indigenous Studies. And was pretty close to getting a double majoring in environmental studies as well. But just being a single father and trying to work on my degree was kind of difficult. And I just kind of wanted to come home. And I missed family. I lived in Morris for 3 years. And so the plan was to get this degree, come back to the tribe, and ultimately work for OEP. And the dream was really to be the director because I made a lot of connections in the Morris community. My family was very active within culture and food sovereignty and traditional medicines. And so I felt like I had the support system and the backing to kind of further the program and help benefit the tribe.
So OEP was always the goal.
OEP has always been the goal since 2015.
Wow! And didn't you go to Italy and do?
Oh yeah, so yeah, I went to Italy while I was in college at Morris. I recommend everybody go to a college or go to Morris. Check out Morris; it's tuition free, and they give it up for the natives. They try to help us out as much as they can, and so yeah, I did a study abroad project where we studied a receding glacier in the Italian Alps, and we stayed there for 3 weeks. And we stayed in a 13th century castle for 3 weeks.
Oh my god!
And got to study this glacier. It was all the way beautiful.
Wow.
It didn't feel like work at all. And so it was a 4 credit class, and it was only 3 weeks, and it was really really fun. And we got to learn a lot about their culture. And so they make fun of all of us, especially Plains people, because they call us flat earthers, but not that flat Earth thing, but because we don't have hills like them. Everybody in Italy's calves or the northern Italy, their calves are like that because they're hiking up and down, and it was tough for a big guy. I think I was like the biggest guy in Italy. Just
like in the whole country?
yeah, the biggest dude in the boot. So yeah.
Did you eat pasta every day?
Man, we made pasta and everything from scratch. We had homemade bread every day. The dairy was insane. Yogurts, butters, milk, because they did like a rotational grazing. They would take the cows that were up in the hills or Alps, and they would be cold. And they'd bring them down. It's like how fish tastes better, like ice fishing versus like warm fish.
Yeah.
Like the cold fish. I don't know, for some reason. Anyway, I did a lot of stuff in Morris too. I was a single father, and I had my kid there, and he was going to school there, and I was going to school, and we were on food stamps and Section 8 housing and things like that. And so I would always get invited to go to the farmer's market, but I'd be like, well, I can't use my EBT at the farmer's market. Why would I waste my money? I need my money for other things. And so I would use my EBT at Walmart or whatever,
Yeah.
And so what happened was I had this class that was called it was sustainable leadership class. And so there was only like 5 or 6 of us, and we had to do this big project. And I convinced the whole class that we should try to get EBT food stamps at the farmers market because I think it's a need for people in the community. because people who have low income should have access to the same health options as everybody, right? And so they all agreed to do that, and so we did it. We got EBT at the farmers market, and then from there we moved on to their food shelf, which was very racist and really controlling. There was a lot of older white folks that were heading that food shelf, and so eventually we let go of all the older white folks and hired translators because there was a big Spanish population and a lot of
Yeah.
Chinese students as well. So we hired some Spanish translators, and we had a Chinese student here or there come in, and
Made it more inclusive for
yeah,
everyone.
and so we even had like staple ingredients there, like wild rice, berries, and buffalo
Wow.
that would just stay there, and then we tried to have like stories behind the staple ingredients, and I'm not sure if that ever went through, but I eventually graduated because I also used to do I worked at the farmers market after we did the project, and I would do like food demonstrations for little kids and stuff all summer. But that was kind of that was a great experience, and I met a lot of strong people, mainly women, which was surprising. I mean, because I'm a dude, and like the strongest people around me were women, and the men just weren't. They weren't. I don't know where they're at.
Yeah.
But so, um, I graduated, but it was during COVID, so I didn't get to walk. Nobody really knows
Oh.
that I graduated because I didn't get any of the ceremonies. We didn't have no cookout.
Oh my
Nobody was high fiving me.
God.
Everybody was all scared.
Oh my gosh.
You know.
Let's have a cookout.
Yeah, right. So it wasn't celebrated. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of like my background, my education. But yes, being the director or working in OEP in whatever capacity was always the goal, and I got that opportunity.
Did
Um,
it happen right away after you graduated?
no, so not right away. I worked for that DARE program for a little bit,
Oh,
for like 2 months, and then I got hired at the education department under Sherry Johnson, and I was doing some tutoring and stuff at Enemy Swim Day School, and then I got a call from OEP saying that they had funding for a position, and then I just because I had talked to them before prior and told them that I was very interested in working with them, and so they gave me a call, and then they hired me, and then I took a pay cut, but I did it because this is what I wanted to do.
yeah. Who was your boss then?
So at that time, my boss was Vivian Tatayushkashka, and she was really smart and
She
really
is really
friendly.
smart.
Yeah, she was
She's
really.
Ivy League graduate.
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
Vish,
Yeah.
and so we got along pretty good. She was quiet, so I had to kind of like break her with the humor, because at first she'd be like, "No, we don't laugh around here like that." And then,
Oh
then,
my God.
then eventually
Vivi, if you're watching, I'm so sorry that Erin just did that terrible impression of you.
I'm just kidding. Like she's from the streets. Vivi don't do none of that stuff. No, but I think we got along pretty well, and we did a lot of good work together. It was just unfortunate what happened with her.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
I think we should let's save that for later because I
Okay.
think that needs its own discussion.
okay.
But what happened after she left?
So after she left, she actually, when she was sick and stuff, she had put me in as acting manager until she would come back. But like you said, we'll talk about it later. So she didn't come back, and they had hired. They just put in Eddie Johnson in there. I don't think they went into official hire or anything. They just threw him in there. He came in. He had somebody come in and introduce. It was Arnold brought him down and said, "Hey, it's Eddie Johnson." Long story short, he was basically saying, "You guys need to teach him everything that he needs to know." And he had an official like person bring him to us. Like
Yeah.
none of us would get that like type of treatment.
So,
just-
as far as you know, did Eddie have any background experience in, science or anything related to the skills you would need to be an OEP director?
So I think with the skills I think that you would need with OEP, and I don't think that he had that. He had business background, and I think he could probably possibly handle the budgets and stuff like that. But I think he was having a difficult time with that as well. But you got to have something beyond, you know, um, a degree. Like I had helped modify some of the job descriptions and included like if you had a history background, Because if you have a like history, like Native American history or anything, then you would understand that with history, you learn about the land, you learn about how it was taken and used against us, and we weren't able to hunt, we weren't able to have our own crops and things like that, and we were put on these desolate areas for some natives. Um, so I think if you have a understanding of history, I would say that you'd be qualified to work for the environmental program
Mm-hmm.
because you could have an all around grasp of things. But I had a pretty good team. But going back to Eddie, he only had a business background, I think, and I didn't feel or see any passion for the environment at that time. So we were just coasting until whatever happened because it's kind of devastating not having Vivian there. And we were all shocked, and so we were just kind of rolling with what we had.
And how
And
many employees were there at the time? There was you, or there was Eddie,
so
and
it
then
was
there was
Eddie,
you. Yep.
Eddie, and then Camille with the air, and then Jason Eastman with the brownfields, and then I was the water coordinator. I was hired as the water coordinator. So Vivian pretty much, I kind of just want to say this, she pretty much took that program from nothing and built it up to something. It didn't have barely any money, and she worked hard. She had to find all these mishaps that happened prior to
Mm-hmm.
her getting that job. She had to fix everything and make it look pretty again, and she did.
Yeah,
And she
because
kept gaining more and more. She got us more and more money because she was doing more and more work and she was doing everything correctly.
yeah. So let me just interrupt you for a second, and I don't know how much you know about this because it was before you were there, but I recall hearing that OEP was almost shut down, like the funding was almost pulled. Um,
No,
do you know
so
anything about that?
yeah, so I think that the funding was pulled, and so what happened was there was a TV in the background going off
Oh my
really
gosh.
loud, and then just kidding. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Okay.
So oh yeah, so prior to her there was another manager, another director who, yeah, pretty much let the program go. And the way that they did it is they got money. They had like I think a half a million or $600,000, maybe a little more. And so with these program funds or with the EPA funds, you have to, well, with any kind of federal grant, I think you have to use it or you lose it.
Yep.
And so they didn't use it, and so they lost it. And so the only thing that survived was the GAP, the General Assistance Program, like where the director works out of.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And then
Do you want
the
something to
the
drink?
air program. I'm good.
Okay.
The air program. And so yeah, so she had to really resurrect that program and bring it back, into good standing and good shape.
Yeah.
And so I was just coming in reaping all the benefits of that, of her hard work.
Yeah. And learning, I'm sure.
And learning, yeah, learning
Yeah.
right beside her. And yeah, it was a lot to take in. But as soon as you get it, you get it.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So eventually, um, Eddie got back in as vice chairman and left, and then the director position came open.
It was vacant, right?
Yep. And then you applied for it.
So I didn't apply for it. He asked Camille first if she wanted the position, and she said I respectfully decline, and I would like Erin to be in that position. And then he's like, "Do you want to do you want to be in the position?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, that's exactly what I want."
Yeah.
I don't think I said hell yeah. I was like, "Oh yeah, I got it," and I had
We
it.
were like, well, I'll consider it.
Yeah, let me ponder. 2 seconds later, yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. That's what I went to school for. That was my dream, and how I wanted to contribute, or that's where I thought that I could give back to the tribe.
Yeah.
Was through making connections. I'm able to communicate with a lot of people from various backgrounds. I'm known to break the ice in a lot of situations, and I can make people feel comfortable who are otherwise feeling nervous or this and that. And so I have this ability within myself to communicate effectively. And I thought it would be great for just building relationships across um, different avenues with the environmental programs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking forward to it, and it got going good.
So did they laterally transfer you? or how did that happen?
So when Eddie was hired, he was I don't think he was on a 90-day probationary period. I think so. He came in as acting or interim, right? And then they what's it called the position, they advertised the position.
Okay. Yeah.
I also applied for it too. So he applied and I applied, and he beat me, and then I was still there in the office, and then instead of him being on 90 days, they just they didn't have him go on 90-day probation, so he didn't have to do a 90-day probation. So when he won the vice chair and asked me to be the director, I asked the chairman if he would also do the same thing because I had already been working at OEP for over a year and a half, or like over a year at that point.
Yeah, and you had been interim director
Right
after Vivi. Yeah.
Right after Vivi for like a day until they threw Eddie in there. But I was the interim. I was the interim for a while he was the vice chair. So yeah, I asked to have my 90 day because then I applied for the position. Nobody else applied, so I got the job obviously. And then I asked if I could get off the 90 days, and he didn't answer me. I texted him, and so I thought no answer is an answer.
And this is the chairman, right?
This was the chairman, yeah, Rolly Hopkins.
Because that's who's the executive over OEP. Okay.
And so
then you had to start a 90-day probationary period.
Over again, yes.
Okay. And how did it seem like things were going? I want to hear from you, and then I want to input.
So you could kind of feel. I mean, when I asked for that lateral transfer, that 90 days to be diminished, and there was no answer, I kind of thought that, well, that kind of sets the precedence. I feel like I'm already being looked at closely, and so with that, I was going to do a great job, and so I decided to really buckle down and really make this program work really, really well, and that was the plan. And so, especially because it felt like I was under like a microscope of some sort, but also not involved, if that makes any sense. Like they're not really including me in things, but they're also like telling me that I'm not doing this and that right, which were very minor things. Like with emails, the chairman was like, please don't tag me in administrative stuff, or like please stop tagging me in emails, basically. And then I would, hey, I'd be like, well then, what do you want me to tag you in, or what do I do? Because I didn't get any kind of manager's training. I had nothing showing me how to perform this duty. I just sort of picked it up from Eddie and Vivian and whatever else. And so it was very fresh and new, but I feel like I did everything the right way. Right away, my first day as manager, I moved our brownfields coordinator, Jason, who had an office in the back of our building, which was very awkward when I first came there. I don't know why his office was way in the back. And it was like he was disconnected from us. Like he wasn't a part of the team. He could kind of just go back there and do whatever back there. I don't know if sometimes he's sleeping, what he's doing, but he's got a porch there, smoke a cigarette, whatever. I don't know. And so and it was the biggest office there. And he was getting paid the less out of all of us. And he had the lowest and the lowest experience, the lowest education, right? And so when I first became director, I decided to move him up to the front where my old office was, and I told him, we're moving you because we're going to use that as a storage facility, and then we're also going to help build this team. We need to build a team. I need you to be around. I need you to see all of us, and for us to see you, so we can hold each other accountable
and be a unit. Yeah.
And he agreed to that. He understood that, and he confirmed that was a good idea. He didn't want to do that, obviously, but it didn't. At that time, I felt that was the best thing for the team.
Yeah.
And so.
So tell me about some of the projects or initiatives that you started at OEP.
Well,
things that you focused on, I should say.
So we focused on. So what I focused on was trying to hire another water coordinator because my position was vacant. And that was a big goal of mine. So I eventually did that, hired Rebecca Headland, who was a beast. She had a bachelor's degree in environmental studies. She graduated out of Morris just like me, and she came in and just immediately kicked ass. And a lot of these questions that EPAC had for years, a lot of the questions the tribe had for years, a lot of the questions even I had for the short time that I was there, she found. She just found it. She found old documents. She dug. She cleaned. She sorted. She did her job. She researched. You know, she was really thorough with her stuff. And so she was a major asset and she was a great hire. And I knew that was going to be a great hire, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
So
um,
I mean, you can't just like state enough how valuable employees can be. You
oh
know,
yeah, yeah,
when
for
you're a
sure.
manager, when you find a good one, it's just like, man.
Yeah, when you got somebody who has passion for the environment, who has the background, the education. I mean, this lady, you know, combined with me and with Camille, and 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 hopefully with what Jason was going to do, or you know, um, potentially do, we were going to do a lot of great things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that didn't last long at all.
Oh man. Well, so Lake Traverse had their district meeting last night, and one of the things that our member on the OEP board said she felt that you were so valuable because she said you were just getting things done, you were
So,
starting projects, you
so
know,
we had the refuse containers that were almost done, which people have been waiting for since 2019. Those are the trash containers. Um,
for the people
the,
out in the country.
the yeah, for the
Yep.
people who owned houses, it didn't matter if you lived in the country or in town.
Oh,
So
okay.
you wouldn't get the big trash bin if you lived in town. You'd get a 96-gallon big old green rollout like you see in
Mm-hmm.
cities.
Yeah.
And so we were getting those for people for free, and we were working on that project. I had that to present to the tribe. Eventually, Jason presented that to the tribe, and it didn't really go anywhere because he didn't know what he was talking about because that wasn't his project. And so I was working on that. Um, we were working closely with the state and with USGS on learning how to strategize to quantify our water. So we had a
Mm-hmm.
work plan um, with many initiatives. We had a watershed assessment plan that would help us um, develop numbers. So what we were going to do is we were going to test where the state tests, our USGS tests, with our own equipment. We ordered equipment. They didn't have equipment for like 3 years. We ordered new equipment. Um, we got all these like little things done as well. Like so we were gonna test the sites where the state tested and USGS tested just to see if we were doing things correctly. We got our QAP approved, and so we were gonna see if our numbers look like the state's numbers, and then we could kind of go from there. And we were gonna build to something very big. We had a project going with the Pickerel Lake folks who owned cabins up there. There was like 56 cabins. There were some claims that people made about one man made a claim to say that those homes septic tanks were leaking into the Pickerel Lake, and they were saying Indian homes.
Oh.
And so, but they didn't know. Like I said, we were working with the state, and we were actually so we were working with the state, USGS, and local folks from Pickerel Lake. So this fella didn't know that we were working with somebody from Pickerel Lake already, who already tests the water all the time, and he had no idea where this guy was getting his information from. So we had all these cool opportunities to argue different things. We had
And I mean, that's
we were gonna get a sewer system for them for free. Um, so I was also working on Chapter 61 codes with the EPA, the student named Mickey Hartnett, the tribal attorney, and then all of my staff. We were going to incorporate their creation story, water ceremonies, any kind of uh, ceremonies that have to deal with the earth into our Chapter 61 environmental code. So we were going to be doing some big things, and I know there's like a few more things that I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, we had a big project with the USGS. It's like $160,000 where we were going to quantify all the water, or quantify
yes.
the majority of the aquifers, so we can see how much water is in there to irrigate fields, and if the tribe wanted to do the the if they wanted to grow the Mary Jane,
Oh yeah.
we were going to help. We just needed to know where they wanted to grow it so we could quantify that water. So we were doing that, and some people were saying that you can't ever quantify water. You can't ever find these these numbers, these statistics, whatever. And our water coordinator Becky found everything. She found everything. It was literally just some websites that she
Wow.
researched, found, and it
Just
gave
took
us
one person to look.
it gave us all that data, and we were set. Um, yeah.
Okay, so where did the trouble start? I'm gonna step out because I need to grab the phone and see if anybody's commenting or asking questions. So
Okay.
just start talking about it, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, so where did the trouble start?
Well, so I think so. Some of the trouble, I think maybe some of the trouble started when I was working with the team. We were trying to tighten up and be a better nucleus, and so some of the folks had really horrible attendance and weren't really contributing to the team the way that I would, the way that I was expecting us to perform. I wasn't being super strict. I wasn't being unfair. I wasn't being unreasonable in any way. I just had expectations for my team, and they weren't like expectations that couldn't be met. It was literally come to work on time. Please reply to emails. Keep me in the loop. I had all of us share our calendars with anybody so they could see what we were working on. We had a Facebook page where we could go live and we could, involve the community as much as we could. So the Brownfields coordinator, who is now the acting director, um, um, he was having a hard time coming to work. He said he was having some family troubles and this and that. And the attendance was just horrible and had always been horrible ever since I worked there. And so I had to address it. I had to talk about it. It wasn't easy. It wasn't something I had to do. But if I didn't address it, then the other team would have felt like, well, why does this person get to leave and go and do all this, and we don't get to do this and that? It's not fair. And so I see things like that. You got to be a leader. You got to step up to the plate. And so I had to do an official reprimand. Or there was two warnings before that, which were some memos that everybody signed, stating that we need to improve our attendance, this and that. We had big discussions. So right away, in my first month as the director, I had 3 meetings with the staff, and that whole time that Eddie was the director, we never had one staff meeting, which was 5-6 months. And I was like, hey, we need a staff meeting. It's pretty obvious things are getting tense around here. Anyway, that's besides the point, or maybe it's not. But so there was memos that everybody signed, and so I wanted to change the culture of what was there already, because there's a lot of no good stuff happening at OEP for centuries, for years, right?
Yeah.
And so
OEP definitely has a history.
For sure.
Yeah.
And this is if you think this is a pretty important program. This is the environmental program. We're Dakota people. Before we even Dakota people, we're just humans. Yeah. Right? We need this land, we need this earth to provide for us. What's going to happen if we don't have electricity, or if all the gas runs out, whatever? We need to learn how to survive. Yeah. We need to have good resources. And so it's very important. This program is very important. I can't stress the importance of it. And so I had to officially reprimand this worker, and he had made a threat and said that I was taking the boss, my position as a boss, too serious, and that he was going to. So he said, "You're taking this boss thing too serious, and you're going to see what happens when you do that. You're going to find out what happens when you take it too serious." And I was like, what does that mean? And then he walks out of my office, gets in the truck, and he takes the recycling to Watertown. And I was like, man, this is not cool. He literally just threatened me. It was just me and him in the office. I don't know him that well, or this cat enough to know what he's capable of or what he's not capable of, right? And so I don't take threats lightly at all, because you're threatening me as the director. Our team is in jeopardy. And so I went to HR to discuss it, and HR did not want me to fire him at all. There was a lot of pressure to to not do that. And so that's where some of the stuff kind of happened with the quote unquote, they say don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Well, you got to rock the boat if you're a manager. If you want to do the right thing, you gotta move. You gotta shake some things up. You can't be stagnant, right? So
And you can't start off like on a bad foot.
right. I
Yeah.
was I was already knowing what I wanted to do. I had a plan, and I had a lot of support from the EPA, and so I went forward.
Okay. So talk to me about this Facebook post.
Oh, the infamous Taco John's Dairy Queen Facebook post.
Yes.
So my opinion post about Taco John's and Dairy Queen actually came. Man, do you really want me to get into that?
Yeah, I do.
Because there's even a backstory to that.
Okay.
And so Lance Pond, I went to Dairy Queen one time, and he was trying to overcharge me for something, and I like called him out on it. And he's like, "Why do you have a problem? I thought we were like family, Aaron. Why would you accuse me of stealing?" And I said, "Because you're obviously stealing from me."
Yeah.
And then he's like, he's having this big argument with me. It was crazy. His emotions went all over the place, right? And so there's a little bit of a background there, and then so he accused me. He said, "Well, if you want to be like that, Aaron, well then one time I was at your house looking in your garage, and I seen my Nipco heater in there, and I was like, Lance, you're really smoking your own lettuce or something, because there's no way I have your Nipco heater, and what the hell are you doing in my house looking in my garage?" It's so I'm telling you, I never told you this. There's a background to so
Oh
there's
my
a background
God.
to why I made that post, because
Okay.
I had an experience or an altercation with him that I have well documented. I recorded. I have text messages from him, and I even called their corporate offices to make a complaint. So everything's documented. So they're trying to do this, like trying
Yeah.
to get me for defaming them, but I have it all there
Yeah.
as evidence.
So if I can just interject to everybody that's listening, anytime you have any kind of interaction, I know that Erin has been big about promoting this. Document everything, write it down, make a note on your calendar. You know what I mean? Because you never know when crazy stuff is going to happen.
Right.
You
When
know?
they're going to use something against you.
Yeah.
That's why I always recorded. So I used to record back in the day. So because I would forget things, and so I'd record like my professors telling me things, so I would know, and I could go over it, and then I realized that I could use this. So because then social services used to treat me bad, and the courthouse would talk to me really rude, and I'd be like, I can't ever prove it. And then I was like, well, yeah, I can. I can record them. I can prove that they were being rude to me or they weren't treating me well.
Yeah.
And so I had that option. And so anyway, he treated me bad. He was trying to give me gifts. He's like, here's a box of dilly bars. I took it because I'm res. I took it.
Because dilly bars are delicious.
Yeah, I gave it to all the Indian kids I could see. And then he texts me and he says, Aaron, congratulations. You just won a promotion. Come over to Taco John's and grab your free gifts. And I was like, I'm sorry, man. I don't remember participating in any promotions. You can just keep them. Because the experience and the things that he was accusing me of were preposterous and crazy. And so I just declined it. And so when I seen somebody later on in the future make a post, because he apologized to me, Lance said, I'm sorry, about the service. We'll work on it. That's what he said. And so then when I seen somebody make a post about them ripping them off, I was like, dude, he didn't work on it.
Yeah.
He's still doing it to people. And
Yeah.
so then I made this post. I looked at the math. I did some quick little math. If they were ripping people off, I said it was really wrong. They're targeting us. There must be something wrong with them, like that they can think that they can just continuously rip us off, right? And so it got a lot of likes. It got a lot of responses because a lot of people feel the same way.
Yeah.
Right. It even got a like by Chairman Hopkins. He liked it. He was one of the first ones to like it. And so I'm at work.
So you didn't think anything of it.
You
made a post on your own time.
Freedom of speech.
Yep, you weren't at work.
I was not at work making this post.
Yep, you were just expressing your opinion the way that you're allowed to do.
Correct.
Okay, and
then 4 days later, after the post, the chairman calls me up to his office, and I'm thinking we're going to talk about how well I'm doing. Maybe there's something he wants me to tackle, there's a project that he wants me to go, to incorporate into the program, which I was looking forward to. Like, I'm ready to take on tasks. I'm ready to perform.
Yeah.
And it's not that. I go into his office and he says, "So, you're making posts on company time?" I said, "Company time? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, you made this post about Taco John's and Dairy Queen, and I'm gonna tell you something. It makes you look bad. It makes me look bad, and it makes the tribe look bad." And I was like, "Well, first of all, I don't think that I'm pretty sure I didn't post that during company time because I'm literally busy all day long. There's no way I could make a post like that long." And I looked at the time. It was 6:19 a.m. I was like, "Yeah, I made that. I remember I made that when I woke up. You ever just wake up and want to complain?" I just
Have
woke
you
up.
been on my Facebook page?
Have you ever just woke up and you wanted to talk about the ills of the world, of the res?
It's been percolating in your brain while you're sleeping.
You gotta just give people the knowledge. Help them steer clear of some of these folks.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I made this post in the morning. I read somebody's complaint about Taco John's, and it kind of got me fired up. I was like, man, they're still treating people like shit.
Yeah.
And so I made the post, and then he's like, you made me look bad. You made yourself look bad as a director. One of the owners of the franchises is native, and so you could basically call it a tribal business. And I was like, whoa, do they have a business license?
Yeah,
tribal business license?
Tribal business license.
And then he said, "I just want you to know right now that Sharon Pond and Verna Francisco are looking at lawyers right now to sue you for defamation of character. Just letting you know."
Oh,
just put that out there for you.
Just helping you out.
Just helping you out.
Wow.
To let you know that you're going to be sued. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, great. And so I decided I was like, okay. And then he says, "Well, right now, Erin," I was like, "You liked the post though." So he was one of the first people, like I said, to like that post. Mm-hmm. And he didn't like it for one day. He liked it for the duration of 4 days. And not once throughout that 4 days did he ever say, "Hey, Erin, please take that down." He never sent me a text. He never sent me an email saying, "Hey, this makes us look bad." He didn't look out for me as one of his employees. He didn't have my back. He didn't have my back, basically. Yeah. Either that, or he really liked the post and agreed with it, and somebody else didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like another sister, possibly.
Yes. Like maybe a sister that works in the office.
And maybe a sister that works closely with him. She didn't like the post.
Here comes my kid. But, go to grandma. Mama. Yeah.
He says, I just like the post of market. And I'm like, well, you have to comment on it, I think, to market. He's like, no, you could just like it and it'll give you notifications. And I'm like, okay, you didn't send me anything. You never tried to work with me on it. And then he says, well, today, Erin, I'm just going to give you a verbal warning. Watch what you post, this and that. It doesn't look good for you or for me. But other than that, you're doing great. You're a great leader. You're doing a great job. Because I said, can we take this moment now to talk about OEP?
Yeah.
I actually talked to him about stuff. Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, sure. I told him all the projects I was working on and everything that we were doing. And he was like, cool. I'm glad you're doing great. It's like, okay, yeah, great. So, and then that was that. It's very shocking. I was blindsided. I never thought that me expressing myself over social media, I have freedom of speech according to the tribal constitution and the United States Constitution. So I didn't think that I was in the wrong anywhere.
Yeah. So then what happened next?
So time kind of went on. I was still having troubles with that, with the brownfields coordinator. I had to eventually suspend him for a week because we had a very busy week. And then he knew of this week and he was putting off projects days on end. And so I was trying to work with him. He kept putting back these projects. And he knew we had this very busy week that we had to be there next week. And he decided, like very last minute, Monday morning, that he was going to go on his training with his wife. And I was like, dude, it's not cool. I needed you here. We have all this important stuff to do. Yeah. And you just kind of throw this on me. It's not cool at all. Because like I said, I was planning on firing him because he threatened me, but
Mhm.
HR had talked me out of it,
Yeah.
and was saying, hey, director, you'll lose it. And I'm like, well, how will I lose it? I have all the evidence.
Yeah.
But there's a different game or there's a different beast, I guess, with this grievance committee or something.
So, he wanted to take leave. Did he request it?
No.
Okay, because in the personnel policies, the program manager approves.
Right. No, it wasn't. It wasn't approved.
He just let you know, hey, I'm not going to be here.
Right.
There was no requesting leave happening.
No.
Okay.
He had mentioned that he was thinking about it, but he never followed up with me about it.
Okay.
And so, like, he had thrown it out there that he was thinking about going to it, but we never confirmed it. He never said it officially. There was nothing in writing. There was nothing in text. It was just that Monday morning he said it. And so I was like, dude, you're pushing it.
Yeah.
It's too far. And then, oh wait, sorry. Okay. So when he threatened me, right, that's when I suspended him.
Okay.
So, and then when he did the second thing where he just didn't show up, or he didn't call until Monday morning, I put him on. I was trying to fire him for that because it was wrong, and the work history was horrible. Mm-hmm. The attendance was horrible. He obviously didn't want to be there, and again, HR talked me out of it again, and was really telling me not to do this and that, and then instead she said, since this is a different matter, this isn't him threatening you, this is attendance. You don't really you can't fire him over this. And then she says, just put him on leave restriction. So then I put him on leave restriction, and then about a week later, I get another call from the chairman, and then that's when he decides to terminate me.
Okay, before we get to that part.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that is not being explained here about this employee. I kind of want you to tell about, you were in a meeting, and or were you at council, or where was it? You were at a meeting, and Myrna Thompson made a comment about him.
Oh yeah, she just said we were in an executive meeting, so it was Myrna Thompson, Rolly, Eddie was on the phone, obviously, and then Christine was there taking minutes or something, and we were just talking. I was talking about all these plans I had going on. I wanted to have a meeting. I wanted to have a meeting with them before we had the big meeting. A meeting before the big meeting, just to give them a little heads up of what I was doing. I showed them all the ways that we're collecting data and all the options that we have. I was just basically, I ran them through a website on paper. So they could just, you clicked here, and you click here, and you can get these numbers. You'll see the depth. You'll see some of the some of the things that were tested in the water, right? This and that.
Okay.
And we're just talking about things like this, right? And then she's like, well, I know you're doing pretty well because you have my very smart, handsome nephew working with you guys, and he's doing really well. He's doing really good for you. And I was like, well, I'm thinking, he's nice. I mean, he talks quiet. He's kind of a likable guy, but that likable attitude doesn't match the work, right? And so
she put you on notice that was her nephew.
I mean, yeah, giving me a little like, hey, that's my family.
And so now the threat that he did starts to make more sense, I feel like.
Well, yeah, no, I felt that as well. I don't have family in high places. OEP has a history of abuse from particular folks and families, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and that's documented, and that's known throughout the community. It should be known. Some folks don't want to talk about it, but it's there. Yep. And so, yeah, that's the reality.
Yep. Okay, so now let's get to the part where the chairman terminated you.
And so the chairman, okay, well, let's back up a little bit. So not only was I working, so when Eddie was my boss, I was a water coordinator, but I was also a tribal business owner. I was in business with a couple of my friends. They decided they wanted out of the business, and so we did vending machines and party supplies rental, right? And so I purchased vending machines, and so I have a pop machine, a snack machine, like a sticker machine out at the bowling alley, for example. And then I set up a vending massage chair for the fitness center, right? And so I had one more massage chair that I didn't know where to put. I didn't have room in my So my building that my mom is supposed to close or clean out.
Don't
Should I
you
say it?
say anything. No.
Should I?
No.
Okay. Oh, the bus is clear. Nobody's going under the bus today.
We're not talking about that today.
So anyway, I didn't have any room for this box that was pretty large. So I asked Eddie, could I store this box in our garage for a short amount of time until I could find some room for it? And at first, it was only for like a week or 2 weeks. And he said, sure. I said, I only need it there for like a week or 2 weeks, right? And then a week or 2 weeks kind of comes up. And I'm like, man, I still don't have room. And so I asked him, could I keep it in there for a longer period of time? And he's like, yeah, sure. Don't worry about it. And it's not up to me. And I don't know if he's asking his superiors or the chairman if that's okay. That's on him. I'm following the chain of command, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he says yes. And so when he gets hired as the vice chairman or elected, and I move into the director position, I'm on fire with OAP. That's all I'm doing. My side businesses, they're not making any money. I put some things on hold. I really needed to get at them. Everybody was working with me though. The bowling alley was really nice. People at the fitness center were nice. They're understanding that I was very busy. I was putting all of my time and energy into this program to show you guys all this beautiful stuff that was going to happen. Yeah. And so the chair
and you had a business license with the tribe.
I had a business license with the tribe, correct?
Yes. So you were all legal.
Was all legal, legit. And I just had that box sitting around the corner, not impeding anything, not in the way. And so that week after I put Jason on leave restriction, chairman asked me to come up to his office at 4 p.m. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta run up there. Yeah. So I run up there and then go into his office. And he says, is it true that you're a business owner and you got a business named Buffalo Garden Vending? And I'm like, yes, it's true. And is it true that you have a massage chair housed in the OEP garage? I said, yeah, it's there for the time being until I can find some space. I know that it's not I know that I can't have it there indefinitely, yeah. But there was just stuff happening. Life is happening. I was really doing well at OEP. I was focusing. So just working with me would have been great, right? Mm-hmm. Anybody to work with me. And so he says, well, and is it also true that you have a vending machine at the fitness center? And I said, yes. And is it true that you didn't go through procurement process or through the tribal secretary for setting that up? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you just put it there and you didn't go through the right avenues. You didn't go through procurement. And I'm like, but I'm the vendor. They have to procure me. Yeah. Right? If they want my services, they need to put the bids out or the RFP out, right? Yeah. And so for all I know, they did that and I was the last one or whatever, and they wanted my business, tribally owned vending business. I'm the only tribal vendor anyway, because they gave all the vending contracts to all these white folks around here, and I can't even get in to them because they're all closed for 4 years or something, yeah. Which I think is wrong too. I don't think that they should have contracts with us that are sealed. Yeah. They should let other people get in there.
So at this point, are you thinking that you're not going to have a job? Mm-hmm. So you knew?
No, so I'm thinking that not because I'm guilty. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that because I've already felt this energy and felt this negative view of me because of the Facebook posts and the ignoring me when I'm asking for 90 days to be waived, yeah. And then when I'm trying to write somebody up and fire them and they're telling me not to, I'm already feeling that my back is against the wall, right? Yeah. And so honestly, that's why I record, and that's why I document everything, because I've already been down this road with the tribe back in 2015. And so I've already experienced this. That experience in 2015 pushed me to go back to college, thinking that getting a degree and coming back and working for the tribe, having that piece of paper would solidify me in the community and people would know that I have education. But
Yeah.
no, it doesn't matter. It's all about who you know, friends. If you're in the good old boys. Literally, if I did a shitty job as the director, I'd probably still have a job right now.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he tells you, he asks you all the questions, and then what happens?
So, okay. I know I said I wasn't like surprised, but of course I'm feeling emotional about it.
Mm-hmm.
I am surprised, and it does hurt, right?
Yeah,
At
because
the
this is
same
your
time,
dream.
because this is my dream.
This is your dream job.
At the same time, I'm not surprised because I could feel it. But again, like I'm double surprised, right? I'm like, this hurts. This doesn't feel good. I'm like blindsided again. I don't know what's going on. Every time I go up there, I ask him, do you want me to bring my laptop? Do you want me to bring some paperwork or anything? Do you need anything? Are we going to talk about anything? Just come up. Just come up when we're going to talk. Okay. So I go up there and he says all that. And I'm so flustered and taken back by everything that I forget to mention that Eddie gave me permission to house that box in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely spaced it out that I even got permission from Eddie. And I remembered later on that night, and I called Rolly via Facebook Messenger, which I recorded. Guys, you got to record, which I recorded. And I also called Eddie, and I recorded him saying that yes, I gave you permission, and this is wrong, and all this stuff, right? So I document everything. And so I said, hey, Mr. Chairman, I think you're making a big mistake here trying to fire me. There's a lot, I'm going the extra mile trying to keep my job, right? I think you really made a big mistake here.
But did he fire you? Because I thought he said.
So when he was going to terminate me, I was so mad, right? I was like, I wasn't blowing up at him or freaking out. We may be able to listen to that later too, if you want to.
Okay.
That firing. And so I said, hey, so you're going to terminate me? And I'm trying to allude to him like, why don't you let me resign? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the least you can do for me. Mm-hmm. You let me resign, right? And he's like, well, you know what, man? You're being such a good leader, but I just had to do this. That's what he was saying. I had to do this. There's too much pressure from people, and I had to do what I had to do.
Wow.
And so it's saying that he's not making this decision.
Yeah.
Somebody else is making this decision for him. Mm-hmm. Right. That's recorded. And so he says that he feels pressure to do it, basically. And so I said, dude, you owe me at least a resignation. I'm great. Because even during the termination, he's telling me how great I am.
Wow.
Nothing, not the verbal warning. So it goes from first of all, it goes from a verbal to a termination. Mm-hmm. Nothing in between.
Yeah. And you were still within your 90 days.
Still within my 90 days. I had one more week till my 90 days was up, and that's when they fired me. They wanted to do that, right? Mm-hmm. They probably just wanted to make a statement too for their egos. Anyway, again, talking about both of those encounters, the verbal warning and the termination. He did not talk about my work performance. He didn't talk about me being a bad boss or a bad employee. There was nothing negative about how I was doing my job. It was all political stuff. It was posts that I made, and then he assumed, and then they're all assumptions. When I got the verbal warning, he assumed that I made the post during work hours. Mm-hmm. And when I got terminated, he assumed that I didn't have prior approval. And so they're all assumptions. I let him know that. And so I was emotional, I was hurt, and then he said, let's talk tomorrow. I'll let you come in tomorrow. We'll do a resignation. Right? Mm-hmm. And then I said that I remembered that I got prior approval from Eddie, right? And so I called Eddie that night, recorded it, told him, I said, hey, remember you gave me permission? Yes, what's going on? He fired me. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, come to my office tomorrow. I'll write a letter. You can take it to the chairman that states that I did give you permission. Mm-hmm. He never gave me the letter. When I went to his office the next day with Chipsy, mm-hmm. he wasn't there. And so, like he's never there in time.
Yeah.
And so,
so you had an appointment to go see the chairman. And at that time, you called Gypsy.
So, if you could imagine being in those situations with your back against the wall and you're being blindsided by the, you know, essentially the strongest person on the reservation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what's going on or where it's coming from. You want some like moral support. You know, you need somebody to be there or to at least witness it, right? Just to be there. So that's why I called Gypsy to have my back. She was, you know, I know her from Veblen district meetings, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so I had no idea about any sort of whatever implications they had or any kind of thoughts they had about it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how they would interpret it.
Yeah.
But that's not, it wasn't true how they interpreted it according to policy because I was officially terminated or resignated, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was no longer an employee.
You were no longer an employee.
So the policies shouldn't.
And also, you were an employee fired within your 90 days, so you weren't allowed to utilize the grievance process.
Correct.
Which the personnel policies say that if you are get politics involved, you then lose your right to use the grievance process.
But I wasn't even able to use the grievance process
Yes.
in the first place.
Yep.
So I'm exempt from that rule.
Yes. Okay, so you and Gypsy go in.
So yeah, I called Gypsy to ask her if she could just be there for me for moral support. I'm kind of telling her what happens. She can't help but feel emotional about the situation and bad for me, right?
Yeah.
Feel bad for me. And so
and not to mention the fact that, you know, like what we have been talking about on our page, which is that we only have one good council person on council, and it's Gypsy, and she's been having to deal with a lot of flack from the chairman and from other members of council. So she already is very experienced.
She already has a target.
Yeah, and she's already experienced with how they treat people.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, for a personal experience.
Yeah, definitely. You could definitely sense that she could sense something, right?
Yeah.
And so we walk into his office. We didn't barge in. We didn't run in. We didn't yell when we came in.
Yeah, and you had an appointment, so he was expecting you.
He was expecting me.
Yep.
And I said, Rolly, do you have time to talk? That's how I do it. Do you have time to talk? He says, yes. Come sit down. He invites us to sit down. It's in the suite area. Not
in his private office.
Not in his private office.
Out in the open.
He invites us to sit down right out in the open.
And his political appointees are both there.
His political appointees are both there. One's up at the front desk and one is sitting at the table with us.
Okay. We
sit down. I told him Eddie wasn't available, and so we're going to try to talk to him later. And then Gypsy says, Mr. Chairman, Erin is telling me that he is going to be terminated and that you went from a verbal warning to a termination with nothing in between. And he's looking at her while she's saying this, right? I mean, he doesn't even answer her. He just looks at me and he says, oh, so you want to make this political, huh? And then he says, Don, change that resignation to a termination, like effective immediately. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? What's going on here? This is bizarre and really weird, and I just need somebody to be here. And, you know, to be fair, I didn't really need anybody to speak for me. I just, but she took it in her own hands, and that's her prerogative or her thing that she wants to do. But she feels the emotions, she feels like she can feel for me, and I'm a district member, and she understands my history, and she's thinking this is crazy. Yeah. Because not only did she think it was crazy that I got fired, Eddie Johnson was like shocked. The tribal attorney, Megan LaFramboise, was beside herself and couldn't understand. People at HR were super surprised. This wasn't like something that people thought would happen because I had no history of any of that. So it took people off, it took people by surprise, right? Yeah. And so there was some emotions running. And I kept myself together and collected, and we wanted to talk to him further. He doesn't want to talk. Yeah. He's elected to talk. He's elected to try to...
So right away he started saying, we're not going to talk about this.
We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about this. You guys need to leave. I'm telling you, we're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about this. You got to go. I'm like, hey, man, I just want to see what's going on. Nope. You already got your district rep here. You know in the policy, da-da-da-da. You got to get out of here. Don, call security now. And security comes. We're walking out as security comes in. and then we just walk past them, and there's an exchange of words between Gypsy and Rolly, and they're they're arguing or doing whatever they're doing, and then we leave. And so, you know,
Yeah. So then, after that happens, that was on what day?
that was on March 24th.
Okay. So then on April 4th is regular council session. Is this the part where we should talk about the watchdogs?
You can bring them up anytime.
Okay. So, as most of you know, Lorraine Russo and I founded a group called the SWO Watchdog Coalition. A lot of times people come to us for help or they have issues with programs. And so we do a lot of advocating for people. And one of the things that we do pretty consistently is we go to council. And there's usually, about 4 or 5 of us that go to council. I know that I've been going to council meetings for 2 years. And so Erin joined our watchdogs. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it was.
I want to say, like
it was when Eddie was the boss. Actually, it was a little bit before then.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't very active in the group when I became the director of OEP because I was so focused on. It really took up most of my time. I really wanted to do well.
Yep.
And I was doing well.
So we didn't hear from Erin very much then, but so then on April 4th, it was a council day, and so we showed up to go to council, and there was probably 5 of us. I want to say 5 of us. Yeah, I think so. And so we just did what we always do, which is we sat there and we watched the whole council, and then after the council was adjourned, let's start there.
Well, actually, we need to go back because it wasn't April 4th. It was April 5th when we were at council.
Oh, April 5th, sorry.
So April 4th is when, okay, so I still have to kind of add to this. Okay. So when I was fired, and then me and Gypsy came in, that was March 24th. And so then I knew that I was just done, right, terminated. And so now the focus is on my business, tribal business owner. And so I'm getting back to all my emails. I'm checking my machines. I'm doing all the stuff that I need to do. And at the time, I was working on an agreement with the tribal building to put massage chairs in the rotunda for employees to use on their breaks and whatever to get a massage, right? I thought it'd be great. And so the avenue that I was told to go through from Sonny LeBlanc and Megan LaFramboise was you go through the building manager, and then the building manager takes a look at it and approves it or whatever, and then they send it off to legal. Legal checks out the draft, the agreement, and then they give their approval, and then they just wait for the chairman or whoever to sign off on it, and it's good to go. Then I'm ready to get rocking is what I thought, right? And so I was, at that time, the acting building manager was Carrie Godfrey, because I think Jerome was sick or something. And so I was communicating with her via email, and she seemed very excited about my business being there, which was pretty wild because we got into some arguments over email prior to that where her and Breon Lake were like seriously verbally attacking me and were committing all kinds of lateral violence. And then I confronted them about it, and I thought that it was all good. But obviously they held on to it. I got over it. I was being attacked. I got over it. They held on to it. So for her to be so interested in my business was sort of off-putting, but I was like, oh, maybe she's, coming around and she's thinking good, And so we have these email communications with my business email and her, and I sent over the user agreement draft, a brochure, and a disclaimer for like people who are injured or whatever using the massage chairs. And she's like, hey, I'm gonna look at these, then I'll send them to the legal department. And then, like I said, I got fired, and so I come and look at the emails, and I'm like, what does legal say? And she's like, I haven't heard anything back, but I sent it to legal. And I keep emailing her, what did legal say? Nothing yet. And then she eventually says, Erin, it's out of my hands. You need to speak to Don Eagle about this at extension, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, what the hell? Why is my thing going to Don Eagle? It's supposed to go to the legal department. Because she said she sent it to legal in the email. Because I called legal, And they said, we have not received anything from Carrie Godfrey. Perjury. And um, so yeah, they didn't receive anything from her, and she said that she sent it. And so I, on April 4th, went to Dawn or to the chairman's office by myself to ask Dawn about these emails. I didn't understand what they meant. I was told to come to you about my business now. I don't know. I'm following what the emails are saying. So I go in respectfully. I ask her calmly, hey, I'm coming to you about these emails. Um, what do you think? And she's like, Erin, you're not allowed in here. You need to leave. I'm like, what? Why? She's like, the chairman is working on a letter, or he has a letter drafted up for you stating that you can't be here anymore. And those are all online. I have them on my YouTube page. You can listen to when I walked into her office on April 4th.
Yeah, and I believe one of our admins has been sharing them on the wall of our page. So
yeah.
They should be available if you haven't heard them.
And you can find them on my page too, Facebook page. And so she says that I'm not allowed there. She doesn't give me any official trespass or any kind of restraining order or any no contact, nothing like that. No official document, just saying you can't be here. And so that only lasts for about a minute and 30 seconds. She's like, we're going to call security again. I'm like, don't waste your time. I'll leave, you know. So I leave and I'm like, damn, what am I supposed to do now? So now I'm thinking, well, what is this paper? I need to know what this paper is so I can know what to do with my business.
So loud.
Is it still live?
Yeah.
Not that tradition. They're saging back there. When keeping it Indian goes wrong.
Okay. All right, we're back. Okay. So, where were we at?
So I was still trying to follow through with Dawn, and I was confused, and I wanted to know where this paper was, what it said, and what are the next avenues that I need to go, because they're saying I can't go into the chairman's office when I'm there to talk to Dawn about these emails.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main point. Talk to Dawn about these emails, because that's what Carrie Godfrey told me to do.
Yeah.
And so we go to council on April 5th.
So then April 5th, the watchdogs go to council and sit there the whole council day. And I think only one of our watchdogs got up and said anything that day, right? And that was Marsha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Marsha got up and
she was talking about freedom of speech.
Yes. And she had an issue with the sign on the door. And so,
which violates our rights.
Yes. So she was the only person that got up and spoke. And they went through their whole agenda. And they adjourned the meeting. And so then, what were you thinking at that time?
I was thinking I missed my opportunity to go up to the stand and ask the chairman about this restraining order or this no contact or whatever.
Mm-hmm. This letter,
right?
Mm-hmm.
This letter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just go and approach him. Mm-hmm. And so then I went and walked on my own to confront him, to ask him about it. And, you know, people probably heard the video, hopefully. I just asked him calmly, hey, do you have time to talk? He says yes. And then I say, I'm looking for this paper that supposedly you have that restrains me from your office and doesn't let me in. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a problem with you. I was like, well, Don was saying you have this paper that you're writing that's going to restrain me or whatever from your office.
Yeah.
And again, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so let me just interject here. At this time, we were all kind of up milling around, and I looked and I saw that Erin was over there talking to the chairman, and I immediately thought something's going to happen. I didn't think Erin was going to do anything. I thought for sure, I knew that the chairman would try to pull something, because I don't trust him. We've had so much doings with him, and so I said to Sarita Easton, I said, Sarita, let's look at Erin's talking to chairman. We need to get over there. So then we went over there and we just stood behind Erin to listen. And it was just to bear witness to whatever happens. I didn't realize that he was recording. And so I was concerned that the chairman would make a claim against him that was untrue. And that's why I wanted us to be there behind him.
Yeah, and that felt good to have your support for sure. Because again, going into the to the lion's den or whatever, however you want to call it, with all those folks with power, doesn't it's not that easy to go at it alone. So do you think that we should just prompt people to listen to the YouTube video and then we can talk about what happened in court?
Yeah.
Or do you want to? Because
yeah.
it's quite
yeah.
a bit.
So I really encourage you. I know that it was on our wall today. You can go to Erin's YouTube. There's a picture of the chairman on it. So if you listen to that, you can listen and hear the entire exchange from the very beginning yourself. You can hear how it all went down, how we went back into his office and everything that transpired there. That whole incident, you can just watch for yourself. You don't need to listen to our interpretation of it or anything like that.
I think a lot of folks are kind of wanting to know how the court.
Yeah. So let's get further onto that. So then the next day, April 5th, what happens?
April 5th?
Isn't that when you got the restraining or the paperwork?
I got the restraining order.
Okay.
Before I could go to Mark Schindelbauer got us a meeting at 3:30.
Yeah.
But I was at home and I received the restraining order, so I couldn't go to my 3:30 o'clock.
Yep. So then that's when we found out that he was taking him to court, and he asked for 5 things in the restraining order, right?
Well, yeah, it was stay away from the chairman, stay out of the admin building, stay out of council chambers. I mean, pretty much. He was wanting to restrain Gypsy, and also he was talking about my family, which is a super broad statement.
Yeah, and your followers.
And my followers.
Yes.
And he said that I was the leader of a gang, that I displayed gang-like activity, because you guys, I guess they think gang-like activity and being disrespectful is asking questions.
Yeah.
Or they think harassment is asking questions. You're literally, that's probably your number one duty as an elected official, is to take questions and concerns from the public. Yep. So you should be a master at knowing how to talk to people.
Yep. And then the last one is that he wanted you to be restrained from making social media posts.
Oh yeah.
Or putting things on YouTube.
Which is a violation of everybody's right. Don't worry. Don't think that they can just bully you into not having any freedom of speech. You can't suppress our voice. You can't. And especially as an elected official, you really can't. Mm-hmm. You need to let us speak.
Okay, so then let's get to did you want to say anything else about that period between when you got served and then when the hearing was?
So, I got served, and then I tried to put a motion to dismiss in, because I thought it was freaking preposterous that the judge even signed off on this. How can you sign off on somebody violating my rights? I had to, I didn't have a job. I needed to get documents for food stamps. I was invited to meetings, and I was also invited to social gatherings at the admin building. Mm-hmm. So I was deprived.
A lot of stuff happens there.
I was deprived of vital services. I couldn't engage with the social community. I couldn't attend vital meetings that I needed. I'm saying vital all the time. So there's a lot of things that can happen to you if you don't have those rights.
Yeah.
And so I was really surprised that the judge would even sign off on something like that. That was so obvious that he was violating my tribal and United States constitutional rights. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you tried to get a lawyer.
I tried to get a lawyer. I tried to get many lawyers around here. But as soon as they heard that it was against the chairman, they all got scared. They would not help me. They did not want to go to court against the chairman. Most of their clientele are tribal members. And so they're worried that the court system or the tribe or the chairman would somehow strip their tribal license or their lawyer license from them or whatever, however that's worded. and that they wouldn't be able to practice with our people. And so I kind of get it. I get it. I understand where people come from about saving their jobs and doing this and that. I understand the lawyers wanting to help the tribal people. But I think, you know, if we can add something, I was told that, and I don't know if you know, but I think this is the first time that a chairman has ever taken a tribal member to court, to civil court, while they were a chairman.
That's what I heard.
I don't think it's ever happened before.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So like, it's not even that. This doesn't happen.
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is a flex. This is an ego. This is this is not. You're not in touch with reality. You're living in La La Land.
Okay, let's stick to the facts.
Okay.
Okay. So hearing day. Hearing day comes,
Yes.
and we have the tribal attorney Megan Framboys representing the chairman
In a civil case.
in a civil case that he filed.
Right.
Yep.
Not the tribe.
Yes.
He filed.
He filed it. Okay, so you come and you don't have an attorney.
I don't have an attorney for obvious reasons. People didn't want to help. They
Yep.
were scared of retaliation. I didn't have an attorney.
Yep. So then you made a motion at the court. At
So
the
the
hearing.
the day before the hearing, I put in a paper at the court, or I submitted an email asking for continuance so I could find an attorney, to keep looking for an attorney. And because a day before court, Megan dropped a bombshell on me and said that there was 13 extra subpoenas, and I had no way of developing any questions, preparing for any of that.
Yeah.
And so I put my subpoena list out 2 weeks before that. So she had that whole time to go through it all, create all the questions, practice it with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the judge did what?
So I asked the judge before he gets started. I'm asking for a continuance in this case to look for an attorney and to prepare for the case.
Mm-hmm.
And he is not wanting to do it at all.
Yeah. And I think what concerned me was that he said to you, after he denied you and said that you were going to continue, he said to you, I'm expecting you to behave in a professional manner in the courtroom.
Yeah, he's setting that bar. He's already calling me out.
Yeah, and I thought right away, oh, no. You know what I mean? Because he hadn't even heard the case yet, but he already had made a judgment that you were behaving inappropriately. Because
I asked for a continuance.
Well, I just think, I don't know. I didn't think that. I thought it was related to the case, that he was already saying that you would behaved inappropriately with the chairman. Mm. And so he was telling you, you have to behave yourself.
Yeah, he assumed.
Yes.
He assumed like a lot of leadership were doing.
And so I remember sitting in the audience and I just felt my heart sink because I thought, oh no. And I thought right away that you were not going to get a fair hearing.
And
because,
I didn't really.
Yeah. So, all right. So Michael Roberts says, you can wear a t-shirt with Delbert's picture on it that says all kinds of vile things he does or represents, and there isn't a thing he can do about it. The First Amendment rights are strong when it comes to political speech.
Yeah.
So that's a very good comment.
That's why we can make fun of the presidents and the senators, mm-hmm. and we can say whatever we want online, and they can't sue you for that because they're political appointees. They have no expectation of privacy.
Yep.
That's what you sacrifice for holding that power.
Yep. Okay. So now, so since it's the burden of the plaintiff, in this case, that's the chairman, he got to present his case first. And so let's talk about the witnesses that he called up. First, he testified.
Yeah. So Megan called up the chairman, and he came up, and he was very shaky, very nervous. I mean, of course, you got to feel some sort of guilt or something in there if you're even a tad bit human. You got to know that what's going on in that day is wrong. Mm-hmm. It's all the way wrong. So she's asking him, a bunch of questions, basically pertaining to my behavior. He's steady lying, and I'm interrupting because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an attorney. The judge is like, hey, Erin, please be quiet. And I'm like, I'm not an attorney. You didn't let me get an attorney, you know. But remember when he's like, how are you gonna purchase an attorney if you don't have a job? Who are you trying to look for? And I was like, I got a 720 credit score and a whole bunch of assets. Don't worry about it. Don't worry how I'm gonna pay for an attorney. That's none of your business.
Because he kind of went there.
Yeah, he alluded that I was broke.
Yeah.
You know,
and that was the second.
Oosh.
That was the second thing that alarmed me.
Right.
Was that he was really doubting that you were going to be able to get an attorney.
Come on now.
Yeah. So okay, so now we're digressing. All right. So the chairman's up there and he is lying his ass off.
Lying like a rug, man.
And so some of my favorite parts. So I think we should do the highlights.
I'll try to remember some of them. It's very blurry for me, but I'll try.
Okay. So some of my favorite parts were when he talked about the harm to him.
Oh yes, so he said that I had created, or that he felt harassed, that he felt that he didn't know what I was capable of, he didn't know what I could do to him, and so he mentioned that his blood pressure was going up, and so he had to go to IHS to get on blood pressure meds. And then see, this is where I get confused with everybody, because everybody sort of had the same story. That I put them in this funk, and that they were scared of me, and that I harassed them by asking questions, and they were really fearful of the questions that I had.
Yeah.
And so you know, I'm mixing some of it. I don't know if he said anything about going to counseling or talking about mental health stuff.
He just said that the harm was in that he felt anxious, that his blood pressure was high, that he didn't know if you were going to come in and do something to him at any time.
Right.
And so
again, listen to the videos. I'm not crazy at all.
Yeah. So and then he kind of went through this thing where she was trying to the attorney Megan was trying to draw him out, and she was saying, you know, well, what did you feel as a result? And he was like, you know, I felt harassed. You know,
he was looking for. I felt harassed.
Yeah.
I felt scared. And then she's looking at him like, come on, keep it going.
Yeah.
I felt threatened.
Yeah.
And then so why I say that this was a blur, some of this stuff is a blur to me, was because we were in court from 9 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Over a temporary restraining order.
Yeah.
So that's why when I say things were kind of a blur, because they were a blur. I was, emotional. I feel like I gave myself a C for my performance, like a C for, if I was an attorney, and I'm not an attorney.
Well, I guess I disagree, because I thought you did really good.
I mean, I went in swinging a little bit.
Yeah.
But like I'm not trained. That's why I asked for an attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty obvious,
Yeah.
But I kept mentioning that I don't have an attorney over and over again.
Yeah. So, and then right away with that first witness, you started trying to introduce the videos.
Yes, right away. I had prepared all the evidence, exhibits A through D, which were a mixture of 4 videos, text messages, and emails. Right? And so when he's lying, he's committing perjury because he swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And when he started lying, or when it was time for my chance to cross-examine him,
yep.
I asked him a few questions. I asked him, is it harassment to ask you questions? I don't know if that was. Oh wait, that was Lynn.
No, that was Lynn. Let's get
says
to that
yes.
later.
Sorry,
yeah.
And then I asked him if he felt like he could give the opinion for everybody at the admin building. Did he have the power to give the ultimate opinion for everybody? Does he speak for everybody, basically? He says yes. I have the opinion of everybody's.
Yeah.
That's dictator talk.
Yeah.
Like, come on, dude. You're an elected official. We put you there to serve us. It's not the other way around. You're not a CEO. Yeah. You are a chairman.
Yeah. Okay. So then, once he was done, did we want to talk about any more of him?
So I tried to bring the evidence that would have contradicted that. He would have been committing perjury right there on the stand, but the judge reserved the right to look at my evidence till the end.
Yeah.
He kept
He
saying
said,
that.
well, he kept saying, I reserve the right to admit it.
Oh,
So for me, through pretty much the whole thing,
the whole thing.
every time you asked for a specific timestamp
Yeah.
on those videos, he kept saying, I reserve the right to admit it. And so I kept thinking, he's not going to admit it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And even when we went to lunch, I remember saying that to you, to say, don't count on this judge admitting any of this.
Well, he never played it in front of any of us, that's for sure.
Yeah, he did not. Okay, so anything else about the chairman? Because I kind of think like the most...
He was just full of lies. He stuttered so much.
Yeah.
The judge was telling him, Erin's asking you yes or no questions. You need to answer with yes or no. And he looked at me dead in the face. He's like, yes or no? And I was like, I didn't ask you a question yet. And he says, yes. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Let's get, I should be nervous here, not him. And so,
yeah, I know. I'm sorry I'm laughing. I'm supposed to be like,
hey man,
neutral, but it was...
We gotta try to find a good time out of this. This is corrupt. This is wrong.
Yeah.
We need to laugh about something.
And we're natives, so that's how we deal with this stuff.
Well, they're probably trying to laugh about us. Don't have a solid laugh.
Yeah. Okay. So then after the chairman came up, the next person was Don Eagle, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So Don got up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was her testimony?
Well, again, she talked about her mental health, how she was scared, how she now had to lock the door, how it wasn't an open door policy anymore, or really that it really never was.
Yes,
something.
that people could only appear at the chairman's office if they had an appointment.
Right.
Yes.
It wasn't open to the public. You couldn't just walk in there and ask to
Yes.
talk to anybody. You had to make an appointment,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
Yep. And then she said that she had difficulty sleeping at night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. She had difficulty sleeping at night because she felt so anxious about the incident and how extremely disruptive it was to the office.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I remember all of that. Yeah.
Yes.
That was so much. It was just so much, man.
It was
just so much. It was so much for me to endure that I think if I was in your spot and you were me, I would be able to kind of like get things down a little more, or be able to like, Erin, say this or that. I was just feeling the pressure,
Yeah. But I guess for me, when I was observing it,
Yeah.
The reason why I remember those things specifically is because Don Eagle is a trained counselor. And so for me, I feel like out of anybody, she should have coping skills to deal with difficult situations.
And they weren't difficult at all because I came very calm-mannered.
Yes.
I was using my manners. I was using a good tone. You just listen to the videos, guys.
Yeah.
Listen to the videos. You'll see that they were committing perjury. Dawn then eventually lied. I asked her about the letter. She said there was a letter, and there wasn't a letter, and there is a letter, but there really wasn't a letter. It was just crazy. It was confusing. And I tried to make the argument to the court, like, you could probably understand if I was to ever raise my voice, why I would. I was very confused because there was dysfunction in that office. They didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
How do you expect me to know what was going on if they had no idea what was going on?
Yeah. So she testified to all of her feelings about it and how she had been traumatized and all that stuff, right?
Right.
Okay.
So Megan really portrayed these leaders in a very weak light.
Yes.
If you're going to ask me, because your number one, I would say your number one job, description, or one of your parts of your job description is to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Is to hear our grievances.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, then what are you in that position for?
Yeah.
You really, if you can't handle tough questions, or they're not even tough. If you can't handle basic questions, then you got to leave. You can't always say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. Or we're calling security. Or please get out of my office.
Yeah. Well,
it's not the way to handle things.
I think I just would expect a chairman who has a master's of social work and a admin assistant who is a trained counselor, that they would be skilled in
professionals.
No, I'm saying de-escalating difficult situations.
Right.
In dealing with people with high emotions.
Yeah.
all of those kinds of things. So you would expect that if somebody, came in and was hollering around and stuff like that, that they would be able to diffuse that situation.
Right.
So when we went in there, we were just talking and asking
Not
questions.
hollering at all.
Yeah. And didn't make any threats, personal or otherwise.
Right.
And so I guess that's my takeaway from that was that if that was the route that they decided to go, then it's kind of scary, like as a tribal member, that that's the head office.
Right.
Yeah.
That they don't know how to de-escalate,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't, help you or assist you with simple questions.
Yeah.
It's very scary. Because
Okay.
what do you do with difficult questions?
Yeah. So then the next person that testified was the tribal secretary, Myrna Thompson.
All right.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about her testimony was that she really veered off of anything that had to do with your conduct or.
Oh, they all veered off though.
I know,
from the subject there to watchdogs to, my my history, our employee history. Carrie. Oh yeah, Carrie's later, but she lied about emails.
Yeah, and then but specifically, Myrna went way off.
Yeah.
So she got to talk about how she didn't feel it was appropriate that one of the watchdogs brought an AIM flag into council because AIM does not fight against their own people.
Because AIM never fought against their own people. Why would they bring the AIM flag into the council chambers?
AIM was specifically for fighting the federal government. And so I don't know. I got a message about that, and someone told me that Myrna was involved with AIM in like 1972, and I'm like, okay, then shouldn't she have known that that whole occupation with Wounded Knee thing happened because of Dickie Wilson and his goon squad?
Right.
So they were fighting against a corrupt tribal government, which is the whole purpose that Julia had in bringing that AIM flag into council chambers.
Right.
She was protesting a corrupt tribal government.
Again, out of touch with reality.
Yes.
These folks are not living here on Earth. They're living in some make-believe land where they think that they're far superior than all of us.
Well, and just that had absolutely nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it was way off.
Or with a restraining order between you and the chairman.
Right. It was off topic. It was an attack at the watchdogs specifically, or Julia in particular.
And then she made several comments about the watchdogs. One of the things she said was they were sitting there in council all day.
Everybody said that.
Yeah.
These guys were sitting in council all day. It's like, yo, that's what they preach to us when we're little. Go to your district meetings. Go to council. Mm-hmm. Be present. Ask questions.
Well, the thing that I thought was interesting about that was that you didn't even have to say anything at that point. The judge interjected and said, are the meetings public? Yes. Are the public allowed to come to the meetings? Yes. Are they allowed to go in and out? You know what I mean?
Right.
He asked all these questions, and she was not happy to answer yes to those. But she had to admit that they are public meetings.
Right.
That people are allowed to go.
Damn, she did tell the truth a little bit.
Well, yeah, but she wasn't.
With her yeses.
She wasn't happy about it though.
Yeah.
So, but she talked about that. She talked about her opinion that freedom of speech had its limits.
There's no limits to freedom of speech.
She said that if it's disruptive, it's not freedom of speech.
No.
And the thing is that freedom of speech, you can assemble and have a protest and be disruptive.
You can swear even.
Yes.
Yeah, you can. But I mean, we would
and
never
it's
do
covered
that.
it's covered under the First Amendment.
Right.
So that was incorrect. But the one thing about Myrna that I've noticed throughout her entire administration is that she is all about placing limits on what tribal members can do and say.
Why wouldn't you reaffirm freedoms?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't, as a leader, why wouldn't you reaffirm freedoms? Why are you putting limitations? Yeah. What you're saying.
So, and then she was of the opinion that even though she was a public servant, that she had, that she shouldn't have to be harassed by people asking questions.
Questions, I guess, is harassment. That's wrong, though.
Yep.
It's law land.
What else did she say?
So, she had mentioned or the judge, or no. So when she was talking about me, why she was there was because she witnessed me approach the chairman in a respectful way, and she was standing by him.
Disrespectful way, she said.
Oh, disrespect. Yeah, yeah.
She said
well, I did it in a respectful way. She saw it as.
Yeah, and she said that you were being threatening.
She said my body language was disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, just standing there, just chubby and cute, and freaking. She thought that this was something bad.
Yeah, and then don't forget, those women were surrounding the chairman. Those women, meaning me and Sarita.
You guys were behind me. There's nobody surrounding the chairman. We can, if they believe that, please run the footage. Get the footage for April 5th at around whatever time. Just go look at the footage. Ask for it if you guys don't believe us. Ask for the footage. Listen to the video. Myrna didn't say anything. She wasn't that concerned to voice her opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she didn't say anything to us.
She did say that she watched the chairman go out and that we were surrounding him.
Lies, dude.
And then Julia posted a picture of her leaving.
Oh, yeah, she was not even around.
And she wasn't even there, and we were still there talking.
Yeah.
So,
and then she had the opinion of the Dakota culture, right? Or the
oh, yes. Let's talk about that. So the judge decided to randomly interject about Dakota customs and traditions. Yeah. And then, so Myrna gave her opinion, which was?
Well, he asked her about respect because she said that the way that I was approaching the chairman and asking him questions was disrespectful. And so he wanted to understand, what is respect in Dakota culture? What does that mean? And, define what it is to be Dakota, basically, is what he was asking her. Mm-hmm. And then she gave her opinion about being a Dakota, this and that. And she was and he was saying, is this pretty much, and he was asking her, is this how all Dakota people operate from your point of view, basically? And she says, yes. This is my opinion is for everybody. Just like the chairman thinks he can speak for everybody, Myrna also thinks her views are everybody else's views. Yeah. Just completely out of touch with reality again. That's not real.
Mm-hmm. So then she gives her opinion that the tribal building is not a public space.
Incorrect again, right?
Yeah. Anything else that you can think of in her testimony?
Yeah, I just, so when I remember her really not wanting to admit that anything hurt her or damaged her feelings, because when Megan was like, how did Erin make you feel? Did you feel like he was a threat to you? And she was like, you could tell her pride is like not wanting her to sound like somebody scared. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, not really. And so again, that makes me look good. Well, I mean, because I was. So like, you're calling me disrespectful. You're thinking that I'm standing in this way that's threatening, but then you don't feel any. You don't feel a threat from me.
You don't feel fear.
Yeah.
And so how can it be a threat?
Right.
Okay. So then she gets off the stand.
And when all this is happening, guys, I'm asking the judge to please let me admit my evidence, and he keeps denying it. I keep asking him to please admit my evidence to show that these folks are lying, and they're lying under oath, mm-hmm. with perjury.
Yep. And he refused. So then the second to the last witness was Mark Schindebauer. He was the officer who responded.
Was Carrie before him?
No, Carrie was after him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Carrie was their last witness.
Oh.
So, so Mark got up and he explained that he had been in the admin building. He was walking through the building when one of the security saw him and said, those people won't leave.
Yeah, he'd already been there. He didn't call there.
Yep, he didn't get a call. He was just there in the building.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then he said,
those people.
Yeah, remember?
Those people won't leave. That's so weird. I've heard that from a couple of folks at the admin building, calling watchdogs or my friends. Mm-hmm. Those people.
Yeah.
So weird.
So that's what he said. He said those people are still here. They won't leave.
That's the security guard said.
Yes, security guard said that to him. So then he followed him to the chairman's office
where we were.
Mm-hmm. And then
we were waiting patiently, right?
Yeah,
or something like that.
We were at that point. Once we knew that they were calling the police, we just got out of the way. I remember we sat down on the chairs, and I remember we didn't even talk.
Yeah,
there was like 10 minutes where we just were on our phones, and I know I was posting, saying, telling what was going on, and you know, people were going in and out. You know, Lynn was back there doing her work, like all that stuff. And so when Mark came in, he went straight in the back and he talked to Don.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so are we going to go him at court or?
Him at court.
Okay, let's go back to court.
Okay.
Because you guys can watch the video or listen to the video.
Yeah. So
and you can hear all that.
But that's what he explained. That's
what
happened.
Right.
And so that's where he got his information that we were trespassing. You know, and so then when he came out, he was like, you know, he said, you guys all got to go and all that. And then, I mean, that's the part you can see, but that's what he was explaining, where he got his information from.
Right.
Yep. So what were the interesting takeaways from his testimony?
Well, I think Mark, of all, besides you and Gypsy, of course, out of his subpoenas or witnesses, he's the one that kept it real, and he told the truth. And so he understands the law. He understands that we have freedom of speech. He understood that you can't be trespassed from a public building unless you're committing a crime. And in order to identify that crime, he has to have reasonable, articulable suspicion of you committing a crime, because just asking questions is not a crime. And so I reiterated to him that he's law enforcement, he's not policy enforcement, and he's not feelings enforcement. Hurting somebody's feelings or asking them a question that doesn't make them feel comfortable is not a crime. So it's just, it's a freedom of speech.
Yep.
And so he can't arrest or try to intercept our conversation if somebody's feelings are hurt.
Yep.
It's not what he does. He enforces law, and that's it, and not policy. And all of the policies of the admin building need to coincide with the tribal constitution and the United States Constitution. They have to be related, you know.
Yep.
So
I mean, I felt like his testimony didn't really help them at all.
It did not help them, but I was going to call him too, actually.
Yeah. And
so then I asked him, I asked him if what Myrna Thompson said earlier about her having the opinion of all the Dakota people. I said, do you think that she holds the ultimate authority of how all of us Dakota people think? And he says no. And then he elaborated why he said no. And so I had to let Myrna know that she doesn't speak for me, and she doesn't represent me.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, I've always known Mark to be non-neutral. So I was, or to be neutral, I should say. So I was really happy that with his testimony that, I mean, it was just the truth.
Yeah, he said they were calm. They when I asked them to leave or whatever, they followed. They did everything that they were supposed to do. I tried to help them. I tried to help them get an appointment. He also admitted that they were being very they were not being, was it compliant?
They didn't want to be helpful.
Yeah, they were not being helpful at all.
Yeah.
Compliant? Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
He recognized that. He understood that. Because again, you can hear him in the video stating those things. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he's probably heard the video too. You know?
Yeah.
Everybody's probably heard the video.
Yep. So his testimony was
great.
Was great. Yeah, I thought
it was the best probably.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed till the end. He didn't even have to.
Yeah.
Stayed to the end. He told me I did a good job. He was rooting for me.
Yeah. He was very nice.
Right.
Okay. So their last witness was Carrie Godfrey. Oh no. Yes, their last witness was Carrie Godfrey because you called Lynn.
Yeah.
Yep. And so,
perjury.
So what Carrie Godfrey, it was really brief. You submitted the emails as evidence.
Yep, I think that was Exhibit A or Exhibit B from my point of view.
Yeah. And so you had her read the one email where she said she sent it off to legal.
Right.
And then you asked her, did you send it off to legal?
Yeah.
And she said no.
Right. So she lied right there.
Yeah, so she admitted that she did not tell the truth.
Yeah. Right. And then again, I was gonna play another clip um, that I just uploaded to YouTube. That I didn't really put it out there, but it's of me talking to legal and asking Carrie if Carrie ever got a hold of them because she said she did in the email, and she says no.
Yeah.
So
So
so hers was very brief, and she was, trying to tell me the process with which I had to go, but it was very cloudy because they had this other big process that I had to do, but it wasn't communicated with me. I said, "Did you communicate this extra process that I needed to do with me?" And she says, "No, I didn't." So, her being a federal felon, for lying under the oath or whatever, I'm sure she decided to tell the truth, but she didn't tell the truth. She lied again.
Yeah.
She lied again.
Yeah. So that was just kind of a continuation
Of
pretty
lies.
much everybody except for Mark.
Everybody lied except for Mark, you, and Gypsy.
Yeah. Okay. So then, when it was your turn to call people, the first person you called was Lynn.
Lynn, yes.
Okay. So Lynn got up, and I guess I thought she didn't elaborate too much on anything.
No.
She answered yes or no, but she did testify that
she answered hesitantly, very hesitantly, to the yes or no's.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was something in her eating her. That's what I felt. I don't know what you felt, but I felt like every single one of those people there knew the truth, and that they could, like us, they could see that these people on the stand were just lying their asses off. You have to be. If you're a human, you have to be able to see that. Even if you live not on Earth and you're some other reality, you gotta see people lying. Like you have to. And I feel like Lynn she could feel that she's about to just lie.
Yeah. And
but I don't know. She was very quiet and slow.
She was, and she like you said, she hesitated in her answers.
Yeah.
But she did admit that she said there was a letter, but there wasn't.
Right, which is a lie. And that's perjury again.
Yeah.
Right.
So, did you get anything else out of her, really?
Oh, man. I mean, basically...
that was my favorite exchange. I forgot about that.
What?
Where she had been telling Megan that she felt harassed and threatened. That people had to make an appointment to see the chairman. That as a result of the incident on April 5th, that they now had to lock the door and keep it locked and only allow a select number of people in, and that only people with appointments could get in. And they
change their policies or whatever.
Change their policies, and that they had to lock that door to feel safe.
Yeah.
And so then you asked her, when it was your turn to question her, you asked her, you felt harassed, and she said yes. And you said, how was I harassing you? And she said, you kept asking me questions.
That's it.
And so then you said, so asking questions is harassment? And she said yes.
Right. Which that was the whole tone. That was the whole message. Asking questions as a tribal member is a form of harassment.
Yes.
Because they love to keep it buried.
Yeah. But I just thought that was so telling.
It was very telling.
Because she didn't attach anything to it. She didn't say, like,
yeah.
Well, you were yelling, and so I felt harassed or anything like that. It was just flat out asking questions is harassment.
Yes.
And so I was like, wow. And that was one of the things I posted immediately because it struck me so much that that's what she said.
Yeah.
You couldn't ask a question.
So wrong.
Yeah.
It is so wrong, man.
So any other things that came out of Lynn's testimony that you can think of that really struck you like that?
I mean, just
for me, that was
just
the thing.
When I caught her in the lie and she says, "Are you calling me a liar?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, "Well, if the shoe fits,
yeah.
you're a liar.
Yeah,
you're lying." So,
I mean, I just didn't understand how she could say that, how she could admit that she lied and then get mad that maybe you were calling her a liar when she just admitted that she told a lie. Again,
I see people that are not in touch with reality right there again. They don't really realize what they're doing or what's going on. And that's scary because this is the leadership.
Yeah.
That's running,
Hmm.
right?
Okay. So
Our tribe.
so after Lynn, it was Gypsy.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me your perspective on how Gypsy was questioned by the tribal attorney.
Um, Man, you know, I thought coming to sit here with you and talk about this, I would be a little more. I would remember a lot of things, but it's so hazy. But like, I do remember her being very hostile towards her and really trying to dig at um, um, her position and really trying to dig at watchdog kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that was disturbing for me was that she brought up conversation that happened in executive session.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't. Yeah, can you talk more on that because
Yes.
I do remember hearing that,
Yes.
but I might have been writing notes.
So what she was talking about was she was talking about she said, well, didn't the chairman discuss Erin's behavior when you guys were in executive session on this certain date? Now, if I was Gypsy, I would have said, that's executive session and I'm not going to answer that.
Yeah.
But Gypsy was like so like taken aback that she brought that up. And when Gypsy answered, she said, no. She said the chairman did not talk about Erin, did not tell me that I was banned from his office. What he said in executive session was a criticism of my behavior in coming with Erin to the meeting. They didn't talk about you. And I don't know, he must have told her that they discussed you, but that wasn't the case. And then so I
I'm
felt
not
like
sure. And even if he did discuss me or whatever, I mean, what is that? What is that? I mean, that should stay in exec session.
I
If
know.
if those are the claims or whatever, then just keep that to yourself, and you shouldn't be bringing that up to the public.
Yeah. So then what I thought about that is then that opens the door for any of the council people to speak on issues that are talked about in those executive session if our tribal attorney is the one introducing the idea of discussing in open court the things that happen in executive session.
Public, yeah, public court.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
right, that's so crazy.
Right.
And see, and again, like me, now I don't have, I'm barely learning this stuff right with you guys, with going to, with understanding policies, with understanding the Constitution, with attending some of these meetings, and also not being an attorney. So, I'm just learning, and so for me to put these pieces together, it's all new for me. But yes, that's extremely wrong.
And then the other thing that she said to her was, she said, when you took your oath of office, you agreed to do anything in your power. She said, right? To help you.
Right.
And Gypsy was like so puzzled because um, it was so bizarre that again, our tribal attorney would try to use the oath of office against her. And Gypsy replied, I wouldn't lie.
Right.
And
I wouldn't lie.
Yeah. And so I thought that exchange was really telling. But the thing that really stood out for me was the hostility. Is that she wasn't just questioning her like she questioned every other witness. I mean, it was, the way her voice sounded.
Oh yeah, Megan was bizarre. It was very bizarre. Like I don't know if she, was trying to have some sort of assertion in her voice, but it's not the way you do it. You have, I'm not a lawyer, but you don't talk like that. It was wicked witchy. Like
Yeah.
It was like you had a little tone on it.
Yeah.
And weren't you? La, la, la. It's like, come on, this is a temporary restraining order.
I know.
Let's calm down.
Yeah. So those were the things that stood out to me about that when she was up there questioning Gypsy about that stuff. Was that I felt that it was inappropriate to use the oath of office against a council member. And then I thought it was extremely inappropriate and opened the door for any council person to talk about executive session by bringing it up.
Right.
Yeah.
But the chairman can do whatever the chairman wants to do. Mm-hmm. And obviously the attorney feels like she has that authority too.
Yeah. Okay. So after Gypsy, then it was me.
Yeah.
And I I don't even know. I don't even know what to say about it.
Why?
I don't know, because it was me testifying.
Say it.
I don't know. I think
I'll be Megan now.
Um, well, the things that I tried to get across were that we had dealings with this council a lot. I talked about the watchdogs and the founding of the watchdogs and what we did.
Didn't they call you guys a domestic terrorist group at one point?
Yeah, they did. They called us a domestic terrorist
That's
group.
so wild.
Yeah, but I explained that we when people come to us with issues, that we try to see what's going on, and that we speak up at council, and that we watch our government and what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
And so so I wanted to say that I asked the judge if I could say that I went over because I did. I went over on my own to see what you were doing when you were talking to the chairman, because
like a friend would.
Because, well, and what I tried to say was because I knew that they were liars, and he wouldn't allow me to say that.
Yeah.
So I had to say I didn't trust them.
Right. Oh yeah, you're like, can I say that at least?
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to be, hey. It's like, yo, judge, run the tape, so we can say that.
Well, not only that, but I mean, Myrna got to say all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Dude, this judge was insanely unfair. It was crazy.
She got to give so many, and she kept saying, in my opinion, and would
Myrna?
Yeah, and then would say all of these things that were crazy, and so so that's what I wanted to get at.
She does not represent me at all.
Yeah, but that's what I was trying to get at, was that my experiences with them were ones where it didn't inspire any sort of belief or trust in them, and so that was the whole point of me coming with you.
Right, and I'm so glad you did. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then she asked that. Megan asked me that. That was one of the things she pounced on, which I thought was weird. Was she said, "So Erin didn't tell you to accompany him?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Isn't it true that was because you knew that he was going to start a disruption, And I said, "No, actually, I thought it was going to be the chairman." And so,
right. Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that was great. That was
so
great.
she was not prepared for that. Okay. Any other takeaways from my testimony?
I loved your comebacks. I loved everything that you said, and yeah, that was probably the second best behind Mark's, because the facts were always laid out there.
Yeah.
And you were so calm and graceful about it, even though we just went through all of this bull.
Yeah. And well, I just thought Megan kept opening these questions that just left the door open for me to say things.
Right.
She was like, "Did you try to contact the chairman?" And I was like, "How could I contact him when he ran out the back door?" Because he did. Mm-hmm. That's what happened that day.
Yeah.
He ran out the back door.
He didn't stay to talk to us. He left in the middle of everything.
Well, he left his whole job. He had meetings and everything, and he just ran out the back door. Right. So anyway, I felt like she really left a lot of those open for me to do. And
I mean, do you remember the judge helping her with questions?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, "Judge, this isn't even fair. Are you going to help me?"
Yeah.
I'm the one that doesn't have an attorney. He's like, "Mr. Kiyukanpi, settle down." Yeah. Yada yada yada. He was out to get me. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that was all the witnesses, right? I think we covered everybody.
Yeah.
Yep. And then at the end of it, you guys got to make closing statements, and you talked about your son and the kind of tribe and community and world that you want him to live in.
Yeah. The kind of person I am, my family,
mm-hmm.
background.
Which I thought was really good because, how we are as natives, how we relate to each other is by explaining who our family is.
Right.
And so that we can understand our kinship connections mm-hmm. and, have a foundation of understanding of each other based on who our families are. Mm-hmm. So I really like that you did that.
Yeah, I just brought it back down to earth. Like, hey, I'm a human being. And not only that, I'm a decent human being. Yeah. And this is the reason why. And I quoted the chairman in my closing statement. Did you hear that?
What did you say?
That I said on December 31st, 2021, Bully Hopkins told me, "Erin, you're a product of leaders." And I agreed because I'm a product of my family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you had
that. So
that.
I used his statement.
Yeah. So you had that, and then when it was Megan's turn to give her closing.
No, she did hers first.
Oh, she did hers first.
Yeah.
Okay. When she did, how many times did she mention the watchdogs in hers?
But it was insane.
5 times.
Her delivery was insane, and it was like for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and for some reason, because it was a temporary restraining order between you and the chairman,
right?
She mentioned the watchdogs. It was
so many times.
Yeah, and so it was really bizarre.
Very bizarre and off-putting, just random.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm not really sure. I didn't really grasp her strategy with that. I guess I didn't really have any insight into it, or I didn't understand why why she brought that up, especially when it wasn't the watchdogs that were a focus of the hearing.
Right.
And the only person that really mentioned the watchdogs was me and then Myrna.
Right.
And then they all kind of danced around it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see.
I'm trying to look for something I wrote.
Yeah. Okay. So Tammy Goodwin said, the manipulative way they play is unprecedented, locking doors to our building because they need to be safe. If you were doing so good, why aren't the doors wide open and everyone is happy? I'm going to help people to get to their district center to vote.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, in the end, the judge made his ruling, and I was kind of scared for a minute.
Dude, I was tripping.
Right? Because of the things he was saying.
Yeah, he was saying this was one of the saddest things he's ever witnessed. He can't believe that our people act this way. The infighting is just whatever. And I'm like, dude, there's only one person fighting or breaking the peace, and it certainly isn't me.
Yeah. Who brought the action into court?
Right, exactly.
Who brought the action into court?
Right.
So
I disagree with that, but like.
But just that he made this huge speech, and I was like,
speech.
Oh my God, you know? And he talked about the Supreme Court laid out 4 things in granting a restraining order. And then he said, I find that Mr. Kiyukanpi went further than just being a disgruntled employee. And then I was like, oh, here it is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I was like, I just want to throw my stuff down and start acting up.
For real.
But then he went through each individual injunction request, and it was to post on social media. And he made a great speech about how the right
freedom of speech,
freedom of speech is protected both in the U.S. Constitution and the tribal and the Bill of Rights. And he went, I mean, it was pretty thorough,
right?
And
so he said denied on that.
Denied.
He has the ability to do whatever he wants on social media. You can't restrict him of his rights there.
Yep. And then when he went through the thing about the building, and he said, he had denied because he has a right to access his government.
Right.
Yep. And then when he talked about the council meetings, attending council meetings,
council chambers and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. He denied that because he said that it was clear that the meetings were open to the public.
Thanks to Myrna. Thank you, Myrna, for that clarity.
Yes. She's probably mad about that now. But but so he denied that one. And then
the denial is actually a good thing here.
Mm-hmm. And then he denied the one about your followers.
My followers, watchdogs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That so we could continue to, post.
Redress your government.
Yes.
And do whatever you like, and that you guys wouldn't be restrained.
Yeah.
Right.
And I do have to say this, that I went to the for-profit meeting on Wednesday, and when I asked the chairman to be recognized to speak, he did allow me to speak.
Good.
So I was a little concerned that maybe he wouldn't, but he did. He did allow me to speak. So
that's good.
I kind of thought there would be some fallout within the council meetings, but there wasn't. So I did feel relieved about that.
Cool. That's good news.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, these are the things that we're trying to do. We're not. I'm not trying to single people out or to put people in categories. I'm here to help. I'm here to exercise my rights. I'm here to advocate for people to exercise their rights. For systems change, for community involvement and change, and not to put people down. So yeah, if he's working with you, then that's great.
Yeah. So that part got denied because they said that your followers or the watchdogs were not a named part of the restraining order, and so he wasn't gonna
Address it.
address it. Yep.
Yep.
But then the last one, where you had to stay away from the chairman's suite and stay 500 feet from his residence, and you couldn't contact him electronically or through telephone.
Yeah.
That's the only one that he granted.
Yeah.
But he did say that if the chairman was not reelected, that the restraining order would dissolve on its own.
Be moot. Yeah.
Yeah, because then he'd no longer be the chairman.
Maybe he was making maybe he had a prophetic moment there.
I know, that's what I was wondering.
He was like,
are you saying that
he's not going to be reelected?
He's not going to get reelected.
Damn, you don't got to be Nostradamus to predict that. I mean, we're giving him too much credit there. We're giving him a little too much credit.
Yeah. So at the end,
unless he just turns it around these next 4 months, like he just turns into the ultimate chairman. Erin, get in here. You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. If he just Oprah Winfrey's this whole next 4 months or 6 months, and it's like we're voting for him again.
Oh my God!
I want another car.
Stop it. Okay.
But what's the chances of that happening?
Yeah, but I guess at the end of it, even though he granted him an injunction there, I guess I really felt that that was still a win for you, because
I feel like 4 out of 5, right?
Yeah, 4 out of 5. With this being the first time a chairman ever took a civil action against one of his own constituents, I think it really showed weakness. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I think that really showed that he doesn't have the
maturity.
Yeah, the maturity. He doesn't have the emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah, the EI.
Yeah, to handle this position if he can't handle
questions.
Literally
just questions.
Yeah. So, that about wraps it up for the hearing. Do you have any other thoughts that you want to talk about for as far as the hearing goes?
Not really. Time is it? Okay. Can we do a part 2 of this?
Yeah.
And do a follow-up?
Yeah.
For what's going on at OEP right now?
Yes. Let's do that. When do you want to do it?
We can do it as soon as you like.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm open.
Okay.
I don't have a job. If anybody's looking for a badass employee out there, but you don't work for the tribe, hit my line. Or if you know a great lawyer, also hit my line.
Okay, guys. So we're going to end this portion of the video, and we will do another video where we discuss some other issues. But there's a couple of things that I want to remind you guys of, and that's to be saving your money, to make your travel plans, to come home and vote in November. I think that this is the most vital time. This election means everything as far as just the rights of people in general.
On and off.
Yeah,
right?
because I think that what this case really demonstrates is how far down things can really get. When you have a chairman that puts out a restraining order on one of his own people who just wanted to ask some questions, get some clarity, but is so threatened by that that he has to take action in court. That's a really pretty big breakdown. So I just really want you guys to be thinking and planning to come home and vote. So we will have another video again, and we will visit about some more things, but thanks for taking the time out of your night to listen and to hear about our side of what happened at this particular hearing. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. You get a car. You get a car. You get a car.
Bye.
Bye. We kick ass at interviews.